My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 38 years old. Before I start my story, tell me, where are you watching from right now? I love knowing how far stories travel, how many hearts they reach. And when you're done listening, rate this story honestly 1 to 10. I can take it. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't some polished fairy tale. It's real. It's messy. It's about love, cruelty, shame, and something I once thought I'd never find again. Redemption. I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 15 years. We met when I was 23, and back then he made me laugh like no one else. He had that kind of smile that made you forget where you were, confident, charming, the kind of man who could walk into any room and make it his. I was quiet, shy, and honestly a little overweight even then. But he used to tell me he loved that about me, that I wasn't like those fake girls at his office always chasing perfection. For a while I believed him. For a while I believed I was beautiful through his eyes. But life has a way of changing people, doesn't it? Especially when comfort turns into habit, and love turns into routine. Over the years I gained more weight between raising 2 kids, working full-time, and taking care of a home that never seemed to stay clean for more than 5 minutes. I stopped taking care of myself the way I used to. It wasn't that I didn't care, I just didn't have the energy. My world became about everyone else. Breakfast for the kids, laundry for Mark, deadlines for work, bills, groceries, appointments, the endless cycle that mothers know too well. Somewhere in that whirlwind I disappeared. And then one evening I overheard something that shattered me. It was a Saturday night. We were hosting a small dinner party at home, Mark's coworkers, mostly people from his new firm. I was in the kitchen wearing my best dress, one that I thought hid my curves just enough. I'd spent hours cooking roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, a chocolate mousse I'd practiced twice earlier in the week. I wanted everything to be perfect because I wanted him to be proud of me. The guests laughed in the living room, the sound of glasses clinking. I peeked from the kitchen doorway and saw Mark standing near the fireplace, drink in hand, talking to his boss, a tall, elegant woman in her 40s named Claire. She was beautiful, with that effortless kind of beauty that comes with money and power. I watched them laugh and my heart swelled with pride. Until I heard her ask almost playfully, "So is that your wife in the kitchen? The one with the curls?" And Mark, my husband, the man I'd shared my life with, chuckled, lowered his voice just enough to sound private, but not enough that I couldn't hear. "Yeah," he said, smirking. "That's her. The fat woman who disgusts me every time she bends over the sink." My world stopped. I remember gripping the edge of the counter so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wanted to believe I'd misheard, that he was joking, that maybe it was just bad humor. But when I saw Claire's awkward laugh and Mark's casual shrug, I knew it wasn't. He wasn't joking. He meant every word. That I didn't cry right then. I didn't storm out or throw a plate like in the movies. I just froze numb. I walked back to the kitchen quietly, my heart breaking one silent crack at a time. I finished setting the table, served everyone, smiled politely when someone complimented the food, and pretended like I hadn't just been gutted by the person I loved most. When the guests left, I washed the dishes alone. Mark came in behind me, tipsy, humming, acting like nothing happened. He kissed my cheek and said, "Dinner was great, babe." I just nodded. I didn't say a word, but that night, lying in bed beside him while he snored softly, I stared at the ceiling and made a promise to myself that I'd never let anyone, not even him, define my worth again. That I didn't know it then, but that moment, that single sentence, would change both our lives forever. 2. The next morning everything looked the same, sunlight spilling through the kitchen curtains, the smell of coffee, the sound of Mark's phone buzzing on the counter. But something inside me had shifted forever. It's strange how life doesn't announce its turning points. There's no dramatic music, no thunder or lightning, just a sentence you can't unhear, a truth you can't unlive. Mark walked in, still in his pajamas, scrolling through emails like always. He didn't notice the way I was looking at him, or maybe he did and just didn't care. He smiled, said, "Morning, babe," and kissed my forehead. That simple act, something that used to warm me, now felt like a performance. I nodded, poured him coffee, and went quiet. For the first time, my silence wasn't sadness. It was observation. I studied him. His confident walk, his well-fitted shirt, the way he laughed at something on his phone. This was a man who had forgotten gratitude. A man so used to being loved he stopped deserving it. But I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I wanted to do something different this time. I wanted to rebuild myself quietly, piece by piece, Until the version of me he'd mocked became someone even he couldn't reach. So, I began with small things that I stopped waiting for him to compliment me. I started complimenting myself. I'd look in the mirror each morning and whisper things I hadn't said in years. Asterisk, you're strong. You're enough. You're beautiful. Asterisk, it felt awkward at first, even foolish, but over time those words began to take root. I joined a local fitness center. Not to impress anyone, but to feel like I owned my body again. The first day, I could barely last 10 minutes on the treadmill. My legs trembled and sweat soaked through my shirt. But when I looked in the mirror, I saw something fierce flickering behind my exhaustion, determination. Every drop of sweat became an act of defiance, a silent declaration that I was more than the label he'd stamped on me. To home, I didn't tell Mark anything. I didn't mention the gym or the changes I was making. I cooked the same meals, laughed at the kids' jokes, cleaned, worked, all as usual. But my energy had changed. I no longer revolved around him. My conversations grew shorter, my eyes colder. He noticed, of course. Men like Mark always notice when the attention they're addicted to starts fading. One night, he asked, half curious, half annoyed, "You okay lately? You seem distant." I smiled, genuinely, calmly. "I'm fine, Mark. Just focusing on myself." He laughed, thinking it was cute. "Focusing on yourself, huh? You sound like one of those self-help podcasts you used to mock." "Maybe I needed to listen to them," I said quietly, without looking up. He didn't like that answer. I could tell by the way his jaw tightened. But he said nothing. Weeks passed and I lost a few pounds. Not that it mattered. What mattered was how I felt. I started reading again, painting again, spending weekends with friends I hadn't seen in years. My laughter came back. Not the forced kind I used to keep peace, but real deep laughter that came from somewhere pure. Then something unexpected happened. Mark began trying again. It started subtly. He'd come home early some nights, offer to help with dinner, ask how my day was. One evening he brought flowers, the first in years. I thanked him but didn't gush like before. I simply placed them in a vase and went back to what I was doing. That night he sat on the couch beside me and said, "You've been different lately. You look good, Em." "Doi?" I asked softly, still scrolling through my phone. "Yeah," he said, watching me closely. "You're glowing or something. Whatever you're doing, keep at it." I smiled, but not for him, for myself. He was noticing the glow that came not from his love, but from my healing. And that terrified him. Because men like Mark, the ones who rely on your admiration to feel powerful, crumble when they realize they're no longer the center of your world. Over the next few months, his charm turned into confusion. His confidence turned into insecurity. He started picking little fights, asking questions like, "Why are you out so late?" Or "Who's that texting you?" I wasn't cheating, I was simply living. But to him, my independence felt like betrayal. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about weight. It never had been. It was about control. He wanted me small, not just in body but in spirit. And now that I was expanding in ways he couldn't contain, he didn't know what to do. But life wasn't done teaching him yet, because one evening, at a company event in front of the same people who once laughed at his jokes, he'd finally face the weight of his own cruelty. And I'd be there, not as the woman he broke, but as the woman who learned how to rebuild herself from ashes. The company gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers reflected light across polished marble floors, servers glided past with trays of champagne, and a soft jazz band played in the corner. I arrived wearing a sleek navy dress that clung in all the right places, with my hair done in loose waves. Not to impress Mark, but because I deserved to feel beautiful. And let me tell you, when I walked in, I noticed the way heads turned. Not just colleagues, but strangers, friends, even Mark. His eyes widened ever so slightly, and he stiffened in place. That was my first small victory of the night. We mingled. Mark tried to lead conversations, crack jokes, and even attempted to pull me into discussions about mutual colleagues. I laughed politely but deliberately held my own space. I made conversations with other executives, complimented their ideas, and let my confidence speak without him needing to notice. It was intoxicating, the power of being fully present for myself. I could feel the air shift, the unspoken realization settling around him. He had underestimated the woman he once mocked, and then the moment came. One of the senior directors, someone Mark had always tried to impress, asked if I'd like to give a toast. The room hushed as I stood, my hands steady, heart calm. Mark's jaw dropped. Nobody expected me to speak. He expected me to shrink, to hide behind his shadow. But I cleared my throat and began. Good evening, everyone. I want to take a moment to talk about resilience, about growth, and about how every one of us faces moments where people doubt us, criticize us, or even hurt us with words. But it's in those moments we discover our strength. Life isn't about shrinking to make others comfortable. It's about standing tall, learning, and rising. Not just for ourselves, but for everyone who looks to us for courage. The applause was immediate, genuine, and long. People smiled at me, whispered congratulations, and I felt a rush of pride that had nothing to do with Mark. He approached afterward, pale, a mixture of awe and shame written across his face. I didn't realize, he began, stumbling over words. I was wrong, Emily. I see now how incredible you've become. I let him finish, then placed my hand lightly on his shoulder. It's not just about me, Mark. It's about learning to respect the people you love, to support them, and never belittle them. That's what truly matters. He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes, a rare vulnerability that I hadn't seen in years. For the first time, he truly understood the depth of his mistake, and I saw in him the potential to change, to redeem himself if he wanted it badly enough. That night, after the gala, we walked home in silence. The streets were quiet, lights reflecting off the wet pavement from an earlier drizzle. I glanced at him, not with anger, not with resentment, but with cautious hope. He reached for my hand, held it gently, and whispered, I'm sorry, Emily. Truly. I want to be better. I want to be deserving of you. And in that moment I realized redemption isn't about grand gestures or instant forgiveness. It's about acknowledgement, change, and consistent action. And Mark, for the first time, was willing to take that path. The next morning our home felt different. There was a warmth I hadn't felt in years. He helped with breakfast, praised the kids genuinely, and even suggested we start weekend activities together. And while the past could never be erased, I knew we had a chance to rebuild together, but now on equal footing I had learned a valuable lesson. When someone tries to break you, you can crumble or you can rise. And when you rise, you create a space where others, even those who've hurt you, can learn, grow, and perhaps redeem themselves. The following weeks felt like a slow, deliberate unraveling of the old patterns. Mark wasn't perfect, he stumbled, sometimes fell back into thoughtless comments or gestures, but he noticed and he corrected. That mattered. I began to see subtle changes in his demeanor. He listened without judgment, praised without condescension, and asked questions about my day that went beyond the surface. He even encouraged me to pursue a project I had long shelved, something personal and ambitious that didn't involve him at all. It was small, almost invisible to anyone else, but to me it was revolutionary. Our mornings became a ritual of shared gratitude. Over coffee, he would ask how I was feeling, and I would ask about him, not in interrogation but in genuine interest. The tension that had existed between us, that gnawing resentment born from years of belittlement, slowly dissolved. One evening, while folding laundry side by side, he spoke softly. I've been thinking about what I said, that awful thing about the woman I used to look down on. I was wrong in ways I didn't even understand. I want to spend the rest of my life learning how to be better. His voice cracked slightly, betraying emotion he had long buried. I realized then that redemption is more than words. It's actions repeated consistently, even when no one is watching. Mark began volunteering more with the kids' school, helping neighbors with tasks he had once dismissed, and even mentoring a coworker who reminded him of his younger, insecure self. Each act wasn't performed for show. I could see the sincerity behind them, and while I remained cautious, I felt a sense of hope stir within me that I hadn't felt in years. One weekend, he surprised me with a day planned entirely for me. A quiet picnic in the park, complete with my favorite books, snacks, and even a sketchbook for me to doodle. We laughed freely, without the weight of old arguments or sharp words hanging between us. For the first time in a long while, I felt seen, truly seen, by the man I had once loved and feared. The transformation wasn't instantaneous, but every step was deliberate, thoughtful, and redemptive. By the end of the month, our home had changed in ways that words could scarcely capture. The children noticed too. They spoke of their dad differently, seeing him as someone capable of kindness, reflection, and growth. Mark had become a man who not only acknowledged his flaws but actively worked to mend them. And in witnessing his effort, I found myself forgiving more freely, letting go of the lingering bitterness that had held me captive. It wasn't naive forgiveness, it was recognition of true change. It was late spring when the real turning point arrived, the moment that cemented Mark's redemption not through grand gestures, but through quiet grace. The kids had gone to bed, the house bathed in the soft hum of the dishwasher and the flicker of candlelight on the counter. I was sitting at the kitchen table, writing in a journal I'd started after therapy, a habit meant to help me find myself again. Mark came in carrying 2 cups of chamomile tea. He didn't say much at first. He just sat beside me, hands wrapped around his mug, the same man who once mocked my insecurities now choosing silence over dominance, presence over performance. After a moment he spoke. "Emily," he began, his voice low, stripped of any ego. "Do you know the woman you are? I don't think I ever really did. I used to measure love by control, by perfection, by image. And in doing that, I destroyed the one person who gave me everything without asking for anything back." He swallowed hard, his eyes glistening with tears. That day when I said those words about that woman, it wasn't her I was disgusted by. It was myself. I saw in her what I hated about me. My weakness, my fear, my smallness. "You didn't deserve any of that. And I am so sorry." There was no defense, no justification, no attempt to minimize what he had done. For the first time, he wasn't trying to fix me. He was trying to face himself. I didn't speak immediately. I just watched him, the years of pain and silence pressing against the edges of my heart. Then slowly I reached out and touched his hand. "You're learning," I said softly. And that's all I ever wanted. In that instant, forgiveness didn't feel like surrender. It felt like liberation. Not just for him, but for me. Over the next few months, our life began to reflect something we hadn't had in a long time: balance. I started teaching part-time again, something that once gave me joy but I had abandoned under the weight of his criticism. Mark supported it wholeheartedly, taking over dinner duties, helping with homework, and reminding me to rest. He didn't just become a better husband, he became a better human. There was a moment during our anniversary dinner when he looked at me across the table and said, "I used to think love was about what someone does for you, but now I know it's about what you grow into together." That night, when we danced in the living room to an old song we both loved, his arms around me felt different. Not possessive, not heavy, but safe. I realized then that redemption isn't about rewriting the past. It's about choosing to live differently in the present. Mark would never be perfect, but neither would I. What mattered was that we had both decided to rebuild, brick by honest brick, word by kind word, touch by sincere touch. As I tell this story now, I think about how close we came to losing everything over pride and cruelty. And yet, sometimes the very thing that breaks you also becomes the thing that rebuilds you. If you've ever been hurt by someone's words, or been the one who said them, I want you to know this: people can change. Love, when faced with truth and humility, can heal in ways that logic never could. So tell me in the comments, from where are you watching this? And if this story touched your heart, give it a rating below and don't forget to subscribe to Outstanding Stories, because here we don't just tell stories, we remind you that change, redemption, and forgiveness are always possible, even in the modern world we live in today.